Alright, so when Tim Cain made Fallout, he also made a philosophy. A world where your choices have a huge impact and where the post-apocalypse is way more than just a playground for things to happen in. But if you look closely at what Fallout has become under Bethesda, you realize that almost every core pillar that Tim Cain built has been replaced by something different. Since Bethesda bought Fallout, they've spent 2 decades rewriting its DNA, from the specific design choices to the lore of the super mutants and the very meaning of the vaults. So, is Tim Cain's original DNA still in there? Well, actually, we don't have to guess, because Cain published the list. He's got a YouTube channel, and a couple of years back, he did a video on design pillars, the handful of sentences you write at the start of a project that decide what the game is allowed to be. And he gave out the ones he wrote for Fallout back in 1994. There are 5 of them. Mega level of violence, no right solution, the player's actions affect the world, and the world reacts to the player, a sense of urgency, and open-ended. That's it. That's the DNA. 5 lines written by Tim Cain before a single asset existed. So let's just go through them one by one. Original Fallout on one side, Bethesda's Fallout on the other side, and let's compare and see how many of these pillars are still standing. So pillar 1, mega level of violence. And to be fair, Bethesda's Fallout is extremely violent. Limbs come off, heads pop, you can turn a raider into a red cloud with a shotgun. But look at what the violence is doing in each version. In the original, the violence is grotesque on purpose. It's sitting directly next to a cheerful 1950s soundtrack and a smiling cartoon mascot that's giving you a thumbs up. Guys melt. Guys get cut in half and stand there for a second. The bloody mess trait exists specifically to make every death as stupid and horrible as possible. That contrast is the joke. The whole satire of Fallout runs on putting an advertising jingle over a corpse. And it also went further than gore, by the way. In the original 2 games, you could children. And if you did, the game gave you a title, Child, and that title followed you. Companions walked out. Bounty hunters came for you. The world knew. Now Fallout 3 and 4, children are invulnerable. You can empty a minigun into a in Diamond City and nothing happens. And the adult violence went the other way. VATS slows down, the camera swings around, the head comes off in slow-mo, and the loot drops. The violence became the reward. It's like the payout animation on a slot machine. Cain's pillar was violence that made you feel something. What's there now is violence that makes you feel good. With that said though, this one is actually not that far off from Cain's pillar, because mega level of violence is there either way. But pillar 2, no right solution. And personally, I think this one is the most important, and there's a perfect example of it in Fallout 1. Early on, a woman named Tandy gets taken by raiders. You need her back. And there are various ways to handle that situation. You can go in and kill every raider in the camp. You can challenge the boss to unarmed combat one-on-one. You can just buy her, she has a price. Or, if your speech is high enough, you can convince the boss that you are the ghost of his dead father and talk him into letting her go. 4 routes, completely different skills. None of them is the correct or wrong one. The game doesn't have an opinion about which one you picked. Now here's Fallout 3's main ending. You need to get into a chamber flooded with radiation and enter a code. Doing it kills you. And standing next to you is a ghoul companion who is immune to radiation, and a super mutant who is also immune, and if you ask either of them to go in instead, they refuse, because the script says you die here. They patched that later with Broken Steel, by the way, which tells you that they knew. And then Fallout 4 hands you the dialogue wheel. 4 options. Yes, sarcastic yes, no, which becomes yes if you ask again, a question, which returns you to yes. And by the way, I like Fallout 4. I've said it before. I think it's a good, very fun, very entertaining game with lots of stuff to do. But it's not a great Fallout RPG. Pillar 3. The player's actions affect the world, and the world reacts to the player. You know this one from the ending of the first game, even if you've never played it. The slideshow. Every settlement you touched gets its own epilogue, narrated, telling you what happened to these people over the following decades because of what you did. And it's not just good ending, bad ending. Take Junktown as an example. Depending on whether you back Killian or Gizmo, the town goes 2 completely different directions. And the design team genuinely argued about which one counted as the better outcome. Because a corrupt casino boss made the town rich, and the honest lawman made it safe and small. There's no scoreboard telling you which one you got right. That's Tim Cain's pillar working. New Vegas kept that because New Vegas was made by the people who came out of the same building. Fallout 3 ships without it. You finish the main quest and the game ends, and until the DLC, that was that. Fallout 4's version of the world reacting to you is settlements, which is a construction system. Put down a workbench, you assign a settler to a mudfruit plant, and then he who shall not be named tells you another settlement needs your help. The world doesn't really react to you in Fallout 4. You decorate it. And that can be fun in its own right, but it's not what Tim Kane's formula is all about. Pillar 4, a sense of urgency. Original Fallout. The water chip in your vault is broken. You have 150 days. Not later, and not when you feel like it. No, the number actually goes down while you play. And if it hits 0, everyone you know dies and you lose. Fallout 2 does it again with a GEC. Your village is starving while you're out there. That timer is the reason the early game feels the way it does. Every hour you spend wandering costs you something real. Now Fallout 4 opens with your husband or wife shot in the head in front of you and your infant son stolen out of a cryopod. That's the most urgent premise in the entire series. And roughly 40 minutes later, the game hands you a hammer and asks you if you want to build some houses. Fallout 3 does something similar in a gentler way. Your father's out there, go find him. And here's the entire capital wasteland. Take your time. Oh, there's a radio station. Bethesda's games state the urgency in the story and then remove it from the mechanics. The clock is in the writing, but it's not in the code. Pillar 5, open-ended. If you know exactly what you're doing, you can beat the original Fallout 1 in around 15 minutes. You can go straight to the vault, get the chip, walk home. The game lets you do that. You can also kill almost anyone. Quest givers, shopkeepers, major characters. The game doesn't stop you. It just quietly closes off the quests that person was holding and then carries on without them, and the ending slides account for it. That's what open-ended actually costs. It means building a game that survives the player wrecking it. Bethesda's answer to that is essential NPCs. Shoot someone important and they kneel down for a bit and then stand back up. The main quest cannot be broken because it's not allowed to be. And Fallout 4 goes one further and gives you a voice. A named, voiced protagonist with a spouse, a child, a house in the suburbs, and a military or legal career, depending on which one you pick. The original protagonist is a blank. That's the point of a blank. You bring the character. So that's the design. Now the lore. Super mutants. In the original, super mutants came from FEV, bioweapon developed at WestTech and moved to the Mariposa military base by the US government to build super soldiers before the war. After the bombs, a man named Richard Gray falls into the vats, becomes the master, and starts dipping people into them on purpose. And he has a reason. His plan is to convert all of humanity into a single species so that there can never be another war. That's the unity. It's a genuinely coherent idea, albeit horrifying, and his mutants are sterile. His new species cannot reproduce. The entire plan is dead on arrival, and he doesn't know it. And when you show him the evidence, he can end himself. That's a villain with a philosophy, an army, and a tragedy. Now Fallout 3. The super mutants of the Capital Wasteland come out of Vault 87, where Vault-Tec was running its own FEV program on the residents. Different strain, and the results are uniformly stupid and uniformly hostile. No master, no unity, no arguments. They kidnap people and dunk them because that's just what they do, I guess. They are an enemy type. They're a spawn. And then Fallout 4 says the Commonwealth's super mutants were made by the Institute, who were also messing with FEV and then discarded them. So across two games, a top secret military weapon that one man found by accident becomes something two separate civilian organizations happen to have in the basement. The monster didn't change. The meaning of the monster changed. It went from the consequence of a specific pre-war crime to a renewable enemy resource. And then the vaults. The vault experiments were not Bethesda's invention. That was the original team. Tim Kaine, Leonard Boyarsky, and Jason Anderson wrote the main story arc for Fallout 2, and the idea that the vaults were never really shelters is theirs. But look at what the experiments were for in that version. Vault-Tec built 122 of them as a control stack. The bombs were the funding, not the goal itself. The stated end of it was working out how to keep human beings alive in sealed environments for generations, for space, for the Enclave, and for whoever was going to inherit the planet after. It was cold, it was bureaucratic, and almost entirely invisible to you as a player. You find the terminal, you read entries, you understand that you were livestock, and nobody in the room ever knew. The real horror of it is that that was systemic. There was a spreadsheet. Now count the vaults in Bethesda's games. There's the one where everybody's a clone named Gary, the one that's a gambling den, the one with the drugs, the other one with the drugs, the one where a man makes you murder your neighbors for a script, the one that's a giant blender. Each one is a self-contained bit, a dungeon with a gimmick and a punchline and a terminal, an arena for you to do things in. The conspiracy became a level design template. Same kind of building, same kind of door, same Pip-Boy, and behind it, an anecdote instead of an institution. That's what rewriting the meaning of the vaults actually looks like. Nobody deleted anything, they just kept the shape and threw away the reason. Now, one thing I think I should mention, Tim Cain himself is not angry about any of it, at least not publicly. He went to the Fallout 3 premiere in 2008 and liked it. He said Bethesda turned a tiny IP into a huge franchise, so they must be doing something right. He reviewed the TV show and enjoyed it. When fans of the classic Fallout get angry and start aiming it at people who work at Bethesda now, Tim Cain asks them to stop. He just seems like a genuinely nice man. That's the whole explanation for that. It doesn't settle the design argument or the lore argument, and he never said it does. The man being gracious about what happened to his game is a fact about him. Broken pillars are a fact about the games. And Cain himself has been very specific about the one that bothers him the most. He said that Fallout was never about the 1950s. It was about what the 1950s thought the future was going to be. Room-sized computers, because nobody in 1955 saw the transistor coming. Atomic everything, because atomic power was going to be free. Robots with vacuum cleaner bodies. The joke was supposed to be that the 50s were confidently wrong about the future, and then the bombs proved how wrong. He said that the modern games lean on the 50s as a decade, like the jukebox, the diner, the bobby socks, instead of as a prediction. And he said on the record that this is why he's concerned about Fallout 5. So, is the DNA still in there? 5 pillars, almost 0 survived. A bioweapon that stopped being a crime and started being a spawn table, and 122 vaults that are not a conspiracy anymore. But every single one of those pillars is still alive somewhere. No right solution, world reactivity, ending slides, open-ended design that survives you breaking it. That's New Vegas. And New Vegas was made by Obsidian, by people who walked out of the same interplay hallway that Tim Cain did. In December 2025, Tim Cain came out of semi-retirement, full-time in the office, back at Obsidian. He said don't bother guessing what he's working on because you won't guess right. Now, 8 months later, Microsoft handed Fallout to Obsidian. He told us not to guess, so I won't. I'll just say that the 5 pillars, the 5 sentences he wrote back in 1994, are currently sitting in the same building as the license for the first time in decades. Thanks for watching.